Welcome to Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the original food service equipment repair podcast built by technicians for technicians. Whether you're on the front lines of repair, keeping the kitchen running smoothly, or just passionate about the food service repair industry, this podcast is your go-to source for expert insights, tech tips, and real stories from the field. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. I am your host, Pat Finley. I am joined by my co-hosts, Jason Latimer and Lisa Moore. But first, here's a quick tip from our sponsors, Viper. In commercial kitchens, clean coils and evaporators are essential, and Viper's NSF registered products are the best choice. Safe, effective, and formulated to keep kitchen systems running smoothly. I trust Viper because there's no harsh smells. They do a great job, and hey, they take care of us. So thanks, Viper. So what is going on? I am excited for this. I got to tell a quick story about how I met Lisa, and I felt kind of weird. It was Facebook. I was in a group, and I seen this woman talking about Garland Grills. I was like, wait a minute. And she was talking about, I forget what it was, but I sent her a message that said, look, I said, I'm not trying to be a creepy weirdo guy on Facebook. Requesting some woman on Facebook that I don't know. I said, but this is what I do. This is who I am. And I'd love to have you come on and talk about it. And she replied back, and she was more than happy to talk about it, come on the show. And here we are a couple weeks later. So how are you, Lisa?
I'm good. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I actually busted out laughing when I opened up the message and saw what you said, because I don't usually respond to messages from, guys I don't know, people I don't know in general. But I had already subscribed to your podcast and I had followed you. So like I already knew who you were. So but yeah. So it didn't bother me. I was like, oh, okay.
Man, she's got the dirt on us and she still came on the show. That's good.
Yeah, I was just excited to see someone talking about Garland Grills because that's one of my favorite things to work on. I really love Garland Grills. They're a challenge, and anything that's a challenge to me, I just enjoy doing.
Yes.
And then other people that work on them, like Jason's friend Luke. Luke was like one of the youngest Garland certified techs out there, like 19 years old, 18 years old. And I love talking to Luke about Garlands. He'd call me, he'd get something crazy. He'd call me, like, I don't know, but I got a number to a guy that probably knows the answer for you.
Right.
And but that's really cool to see. So let's get right into it. So are you in Oklahoma City or Oklahoma?
Yeah, Oklahoma City.
And you work for Hagar.
I do. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know, Hagar is a pretty good sized company there in Oklahoma and Texas, right?
Yes.
So that's cool. That's cool. You've got a pretty cool story. I wasn't expecting half of this stuff in here, honestly, once I got to talking to you. So you started out in the Army as a diesel mechanic.
Yeah.
How did that?
I started out as the girl getting yelled at for holding the flashlight wrong, standing on the front bumper of my dad's truck. That's where it began. No, he was pretty intentional in raising me in a way that if I wanted to get married and I wanted to have a man in my life, then awesome. But if I didn't, that I wouldn't be bound for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. He wanted me to be self-sufficient. That way it was a want, not a need, And so he really poured into me on all things. It was all gasoline. It was long before getting into any sort of diesel. I actually worked for O'Reilly's when I was like 19, fresh out of high school. As a little merchandiser, I'd set up the shelves and change over the inventory. It did not last long. I mean, like 6 months, because I don't know. I probably didn't want to get up one morning or something. I don't know. But it was fun. I did a lot of inventory and stuff like that. But I got to learn the different parts, what they looked like, get my hands on them and things like that. And so fast forward, always turned a wrench as a hobby. Anytime the rule in the house was, my mom had to finally set this rule growing up for my brother and I, because we would take things apart. And it got to where it was like, okay, sure, take it apart, but it better work when you put it back together. Like that was the thing. Like it better not be worse than it was when you started. Because
I heard that as a kid. That's how I lived my childhood. If you take it apart, it better work when you're done.
Yeah, like she wanted us to, and my brother did it. My brother, he's pretty smart guy. I won't give him too much credit, but younger brother. But we were always really inquisitive. We wanted to know why. We wanted to know the inner workings, and that's kind of something else that we got from our dad too, is he always taught us to step out and look at something from like a 360 instead of just being, blinded with tunnel vision and all of that. He wanted us to really step outside of it, take a look from all vantage points that we could, and then assess and move forward with a plan. And so we would take things apart. We'd modify our bicycles. I mean, just any things we could get our hands on, we were doing something with. And so I've always really wanted to know how things worked. And I got married really young out of high school. I won't call it a mistake. It was a learning experience. But I gained some really awesome people in my life through that, and a lot of, just like engine rebuilding experience, things like that. So I'm trying to think, Army. I was about to go through my divorce, and this is kind of heavy, but I was homeless. I was surfing couches. I had no education except for a high school diploma. I was about to go through a divorce. I had nothing. No prospects, nothing. And I remember I woke up one morning and I was like, like I'm going to have to do something with myself, and I had a really good friend that had been in the Marine Corps active duty for 5 years. And then she had done 3 years as a reservist. Or no, sorry, National Guard. And I went and woke her up and I said, hey, take me down to the recruiter station before I change my mind. I want to go in. I want to enlist. And she was like, sleep it off. Tell me in 10 minutes. And so I was like, no, you got to get up now before I change my mind. We have to go right now. I have to go right now. So I was 24 and she took me down there, took my ASVAB and scored okay enough that, I got to have a pick of the jobs, and I thought to myself, I could do something completely outlandish that I've never experienced before, and I could fail miserably, or I could go into diesel because, they don't have anything gasoline except for a lawnmower in the military. But, I could go into diesel, and some of the things I already know can apply. So I at least have a bit of a foundation, and I'm not, going in completely in over my head. And so that's pretty much how I arrived there. And that was the second best decision I ever made in my life. It completely changed the trajectory of everything. Absolutely.
That's really cool. So they trained you and everything you needed to do. And how long were you in for?
4 years. I did 3 years active duty, and then I was 1 year as a reservist, and then got on the inactive ready reserve. So
thank you for
what your MOS?
91 Bravo. So it's a wheeled vehicle mechanic.
Oh, my wife was an 88 Mike.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, she's a heavy wheel operator.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Cool. So you did your time, you came out, and you transitioned into the oil field industry?
Yeah. So when I first got out,
I know it's big in that area. I know that because I've talked to some other people in that area, and like it seems like a lot of people have tried the oil field industry because it's super popular in that area.
Right. You wouldn't catch me on a rig. I mean, I'm 5'3" and like 100 pounds soaking wet. Like, you're not going to catch me on a rig. I can't even lift the tongs. Like, let's be honest. But I can do anything with the step stool and leverage. But like, I don't want all that. But a friend of the family worked for a fleet service, and they needed a mechanic. And so I applied and I got the job, but it was very short-lived. It turns out, and I won't broad stroke all of them, but it turns out that specific group of drivers were worse than high school girls. And so I was like, yeah, life's too short for all this. So I went ahead and bowed out. I think I lasted 4 months, because, you can blame it on being a millennial or I don't know, but I'm not going to stay and do something that makes me miserable. I'm not going to. Life's too short, and there are too many avenues to explore. And at the time, I only had one child and was a newlywed, and I could have done anything. So it was like, why would I stay where I'm this uncomfortable? I just, so I left there. One of the things you had asked was how I ended up going into nonprofit, or I don't know if that's where you were going to go with this.
Yeah. So kind of next in the lineage is like how everything worked out.
Yeah. Well, so and you'll hear this common theme, I'm sure, throughout the rest of our conversation. You probably saw on my profile, I'm a youth pastor. I'm a minister. I actually graduated Bible college a couple months ago. But so that was not the life that I was living when my husband and I first got engaged and everything. And I was still working for that fleet service, and I had put in my notice and I quit. And he worked for a ministry, an inpatient long-term rehabilitation program. And he had actually gone through the program for his own addiction issues before we were married. And it was the one that actually helped him to get clean, and has been now for 13 and some months, 13 years and a few months. But so before I got out of the Army, when I left my first duty station, I had gone to Korea, and then I got orders to Fort Riley, Kansas. And I remember being warned when I was in Korea, because I was we had a severe NCO shortage. And so if you could read and you could put your shoes on the right feet and show up on time, you got put in leadership. So so I could check all those boxes. And so I was put in charge of the Bravo fleet as just a PFC. Like I couldn't have led myself out of an open door, but okay, give me I'll take this list of vehicles. Let's do this. And so it actually ended up getting me a really decent award when I left Korea to PCS to Fort Riley. And so when I arrived at Fort Riley, they saw that I had been the unofficial NCOIC of the Bravo fleet. And they were like, oh, well, can you type? And I was like, oh, yes. Yes, Sergeant. I sure can, Sergeant. Yeah. And that was a mistake, because they said, oh, good. So we're going to put you in the orderly room. And I'm like, no, I don't do walls. I don't do desks. I don't do pens and paper. I don't do walls. Like I need fresh air. I want a wrench in my hand. I want something really dirty to play with. Like I don't want to fool around in there. Like that doesn't sound like a good time to me at all. And, needs of the Army. So that's where I went. I just sucked it up and went to the orderly room. But I did all of the new soldier in processing. I did all of the filing. I learned how to track, the NCOER, so non-commissioned officer evaluation report. And so I had to remember that acronym. It's been a while. But I had to do like all of the leave processing and just any sort of administrative duties. Basically, I was the administrative assistant for our commander and for our first sergeant. And so it gave me a whole new wheelhouse, like just built it up brick by brick, an entire new skill set. And so I learned, Microsoft Excel. I learned Outlook. I learned PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint. Oh boy. But I learned all those things. And so when I got out, and I hated my 5 minutes in the oil field, and I had my son, and my husband and I got married, and all of this stuff, it started happening, and like one thing after the other, the ball started rolling faster than I could really pay attention to the momentum. And so we landed in Oklahoma City, because this is where the ministry where he went through for his recovery, they had asked him to come back up here to go to work for them. And so, me, I'm the supportive wife, and yeah, sure. Let's pack, let's go. I'm always down for an adventure. I moved around a lot as a kid, and in the military, it doesn't hurt my feelings to pack a box and go. And so, we got here, and it was like, okay, this is great, but we need another income. This isn't going to work. Well, it just so happened that the corporate office for the same ministry, not the building where my husband worked, but like the one that oversees all of the branches in the state, was hiring for an administrative assistant. So they hired me, and I ended up being the assistant to the CFO, as well as the human resources manager for the state, like for every center in the state. And I've not gone to school for that. And I did some seminars and some online learning, and I have not read cover to cover, but just about read the Richard Hammer book about this thick on church tax laws. Woo! to learn about like donations, any sort of nonprofit, accounting and things like that. So it was just crazy how everything happened and was orchestrated to give me what I needed to follow through with, what was going to come my way. So that's how I ended up doing nonprofit administration. Being thrown out of the motor pool against my will into an office gave me all of the skills that I needed to do that. So I enjoyed it very much, very, very much.
How long were you in that role, or how long did you work for that organization?
For that organization, I was there about 2 years, and then I actually went to work for I can name drop them, that's fine. Hobby Lobby, corporate. I was their fraud investigator for all hobbylobby.com orders in the world.
Nice.
Me. Not me and a crew, me. So talk about, I would get there in the morning and I'd load up my spreadsheet. I'd have thousands and thousands and thousands that would be flagged but I got paid to deep dive. It was really fun. But and then I also did accounts payable for them. And so I did that. I was with them for a couple of years. And then we got the opportunity in Kansas, which is with the same nonprofit organization, but a different branch. And so, because it was in Kansas, not in Oklahoma. And so we were up there for 2 years before we decided to come back to Oklahoma. And up there, we were the executive director and the program director. So all, answering to the board and financials and all that stuff. That was all mine. So, yeah.
So how did you find your way into Hagar and commercial kitchens? I mean, you've kind of been everywhere, and now you're here. It's not like a straight path. You kind of like here.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've had fun in everything you do, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of, like I said, life's too short to be miserable. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. When we first moved back from Oklahoma, I was staying home with the kids. I've got 3, and my husband, he does marketing for water filtration system sales company.
Nice.
And so he was working, and I wanted like a little extra cash, but still wanted to be able to be at home because our youngest was he wasn't 2 yet. He was like a year and a half old. And so I still wanted to be home with him and then the other 2 as well. And I've always liked fixing things and refurbishing things and just restoring things. So I had started kind of restoring furniture a little bit while I was working part-time, very, very part-time at a gym here in Yukon. And I met this really awesome woman who's probably watching right now. And she and I just fast friends, just immediately very close. And I didn't love working at the gym because I like my kids mostly. But when you start bringing like other people's kids into the equation, I struggle a lot. Like I love all children. I don't want bad things for kids, but I'm not built that way. I couldn't be a teacher, and working in a gym daycare was not my forte. And I'm like, y'all just need to come get your kids. They're all, none of them act right. Just come get your kids. They're like, this is your job. And I'm like, I don't care. Get your kid.
I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have lasted, honestly. I don't know. I think they were pretty desperate for somebody to just work there. So I don't know. That's probably the only reason I lasted as long as I did, but I did not enjoy it. I enjoyed hanging out with my friend Amy, but I did not enjoy everything else. So anyway, so she and I were talking, and I said, I think I'm going to go back to work full time. And I don't want to go back into full-time ministry, like the 24-hour day, 7-day a week, 2 a.m. phone call ministry. Because at the time I was just doing outreach ministry for our church. My pastor was hinting to me he wanted me to take over children's, but I refer back to a previous statement. And so she had said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't want to try to fix people anymore. People give me excuses. People give me lists and lists and lists of reasons. Like I can tell them like exactly A, B, and C on how you can fix the situation. And they're like, but I can't. And so it was just a lot. It took a toll on me. I tend to be a pretty black and white person. And I said, I want to turn wrenches again. I said, who'd you say your husband works for again? And she said, Hager Restaurant Service. And I was like, what does he do? And in my head, I'm like, I realize he probably fixes like ovens and stuff, but I had no idea. And so I was like, well, do you think, and I didn't want him to vouch for me because he'd only ever met me like once. And I don't expect that from people. But if you could just give me the number to call kind of thing. And so it's actually funny. I hope Ed's watching. He was our service manager at the time. So I called up through the service department to talk to him because that's what I was told to do. And apparently when the message got to him on the sticky note, he assumed that I was calling to apply as a service writer and crumpled it up and threw it away because he wasn't hiring for service writers, but because it was a woman, he just assumed.
We're going to have him on the show next to explain himself.
Yeah. Jason's our HR department, so Jason's our HR department, so just
oh my gosh, it was the funniest thing. It was so funny because I guess when her husband, his name's Taylor, he went in there and he was like, "Did you get that message?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought she was, and he called me immediately and he called me in for an interview and he actually ended up offering me the job on the spot. Turns out we were both diesel mechanics in the Army and we could kind of compare some notes and we got along really well, but it was really funny to give him a hard time for that for a hot minute.
Nice. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. But that's pretty much how I found Hager, and it has been a whirlwind. It is nothing like I would have imagined. I only do hot side because I'm still learning that. I mean, I'm gonna master that before I even think about refrigeration. But there's so much to it. I never would have imagined that it was such a vast field.
Oh, it's huge. And like you said, you had no idea like what it even was before you talked to her. It's like, and that's what we run into all the time. And that's kind of why we do this, is like a lot of people don't know this industry even exists. We're like a little kept secret. People think of their oven breaking home, they buy a new one. You're not doing that with a $8,000 oven. No, you're fixing it. Things lasted 10 years. So
yeah. Well, yeah, and these things, they're built like cars. I mean, they're not throwaway equipment.
They cost more than cars these days too.
They do. If you're getting the good ones, they sure do. Yeah, and it's fascinating. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about it is, the ADHD brain kicks in, and it's like I'm never looking. There. Yeah, I honestly think like 90% of the technicians I've met, like I don't, like it's almost like a requirement to have. It
gotta be crazy to want to do this again and again and again.
Right. And I love it. I was talking to Bill Hager not too long ago. I talk to him regularly, but because he is at our branch a lot, and with the going through the stuff with my dad being sick and stuff like that, he had said, he didn't want me to be overwhelmed. He was just checking in. They're amazing about that, just checking in and making sure everybody's, all right or whatever. And I said, oh, no, I need to be here. This is like, I get paid to do a hobby. Please don't make me go home. Please, I don't want to go home. Just let me go crawl inside the back of a grill for 4 hours. I'm happy there,
So what was some of your first like takeaways when you started working on this stuff? Were you just like, what am I getting myself into? Or you just want more of it?
I wanted more of it. Probably one of the first things I put hands on was a Fry Master, at a McDonald's. And it was gas. And I just remember just being like, whoa, this is far more complex than I would have even began to give it credit for. Had no idea, just my mind was blown. Just so much absorption. First couple of months training. But yeah, my mind was just blown because when I thought, okay, ovens, okay, fryers, okay, toasters, but I didn't have any idea what actually make those things work. And so when we started opening things up and seeing like solid state relays and the different boards and the contactors and just, the electrical circuitry or the gas, circuit, like all of that, just, I don't know. It was just fascinating. I can't get enough of it, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Some of the things that are in these ovens, in these fryers, these grills. I've been doing it almost 20 years, and the changes I've seen in 20 years is crazy. I talked to guys that have been doing it for like 40 years, and the changes they've seen in 40 years is just blows your mind. So I can fully understand, seeing it for the first time. You're like, what's this? So what's some of the most complicated things you've worked on? I know you work on garland, and those can be a little intimidating just because most people see a lot of stuff in there and it does a lot of things and they just kind of freak out. I personally love working on a garland grill. That's just me.
Yeah, but they're my favorite. Definitely my favorite. Now there are still days. We have a senior technician named Gabe. He's the one that's trained me. He's taught me everything about the garland grills, top to bottom, back to front, and he's one of those, like you were talking about your friend earlier. You're like, I know a guy, let's call him, and you can just tell him what's going on over the phone and he can pretty well, explain what's happening. But I trained with him for a couple of months, just shadowing and learning how to do, like, just starting small, doing the grill certs, changing out the seals and cleaning up the grease and just learning how to do the PMs on it, and then moving into the diagnostics, because we still have 9501s, World Grills, and the 3PXs, and then we have the Chick-fil-A the Chick-fil-A CBPX 12. That one, the Chick-fil-A. Yeah.
There's only one, isn't there, with that puts the char marks?
Yeah, well, they're on their second revision, but it's the CXPB 12.
Yeah, it's got the grates. Yeah.
Those are fun to
work. Yeah, Luke showed me actually how to change those platens. He was rocking and rolling. I got a bunch of content with him. I haven't shared with anyone. The kid was killing it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was splitting that fun. And everything. Yeah.
And I like how the thing I think I like about them is there's a lot to them, even with, the 3PXs or like the newest, the compression grills. Have you guys messed with the newest, the compression grill? Okay. So with the additional compression board and all of that, what I like about it though, is that each zone is its own zone. And so it's like, until you're getting into like the parent-child relationship, master slave, whatever, you're looking at this zone, these LEDs, what is it doing, who's it communicating with, and I like that. So I don't have to necessarily worry about the whole unit as a whole. I can pretty well trace what's going on, and it usually comes down to a connection. So a lot of times it's just a bad connection somewhere, whether it's cold solder on the board or whatever.
Have you done any of the upgrades at McDonald's where they had the wire that's kind of just came apart?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to do one yesterday, but we got snowed out, so I got to do it next week. I've done one. This is my second one I've got to do. That's a little bit fun. It's a lot of stuff going on. You got to do a lot of stuff, but it's
What wires are you referring to? Is this from grease migration, drying up and cracking them, like wire harnesses, or what part?
That's a complete wiring harness for the upper platens, and you got to do all three of them. It's a new conduit. It's a new cold shrink. It's all new probes. You pretty much all the wiring in the upper platen gets changed.
Okay.
There was a rash of them that went out. That the wiring that they used was not as high temp as it should have been. And so it was causing heat damage a lot faster than it should have, and degradation of the wire, and then taking out the high limits and all of that. It was just.
Yeah, if you open one up, you know it, because there's like, you open it up and you freak out. You're like, holy smokes. You're like, how's this thing running? Because there's no insulation in the wires, dude. It's like, you're like, I'm glad this is unplugged right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because like 90% of the diagnostics that you do on a garland grill is live. I mean, you need the
100%. Yeah, all the new techs are like, are we going to unplug it? I'm like, oh, no, we can't.
Well, good luck diagnosing it.
We're not going to know you got to figure, does it have power? Does the start button work? Does it do what it's supposed to do? Wherever it stops is where the problem is, but we can't determine any of that unless this thing is on. Right. So it is what it is. It's, bless you for, how long have you been working on these?
About a year and a half, because I've been with it a little over 2 years. So
that's cool. I respect that. That's great, because people are quite intimidated by that. And that particular model is the one that we were talking about, Pat, where I didn't understand what the shrink wrap was about inside I pulled the thing out and it blew up in my hand like a Pillsbury.
Yes.
I have a video I made with the guys. We were joking about it, and it literally, I didn't know what it was. I'm like, what is this? And I called. I couldn't get a hold of anyone. Hours went by. I was doing other stuff. And then I pulled the string and it popped. And I was like, this is like a Pillsbury. You pop it, but once I popped it, it was done. I threw it away. And, I couldn't get a hold of tech support. So I found out down the road that was what it was. And for the trouble, the at the time being new and whatnot, they were like, yeah, we'll just leave it as is. I'm like, I'm sorry.
I've accidentally pulled it from the wrong end before and completely wadded it up.
Yeah, it was.
Donut. It's like, great. Cool. That was the only one I had in the service box. Rock on.
Should I stop and wait for that to be, or should I get this going and get them cooking, right?
Right. That's why one of the reasons I stopped, when you're, a brand new tech, and I'm still very green, but, brand new tech, you're learning what to and not to say to your customers, and things like, oh, it shouldn't take me long. I don't say those things anymore. I'm just like, it takes me what it takes me. I'm not going to jinx myself. It's like baseball. I'm not doing it.
I got a question. So, you said Taylor. Is that happen to be the Taylor that's the Fry Master trainer for Hagar?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've met Taylor. I know Taylor. Yeah. That's funny. That's cool.
So his wife Amy is how my whole Hagar adventure began. So Mrs. Cool. Smith is responsible. There you go. She's gonna be like, no, don't name drop me.
How many states are they in?
Just two.
But
we've got Tulsa, Oklahoma City. And then in Texas, there's El Paso, Fort Worth, and Dallas. So.
Yeah, Stuart rattled them all off earlier.
Yeah, he's up at Tulsa, Stuart. Yeah.
He corrected me. He started rattling them all off. I was like, okay. I like Stuart. He's a good guy.
I've only got to meet him like once or twice, but we know a lot of the same people.
Just the internet's a wonderful thing for me. I met a lot of great people, a lot of good friends now. People I've never met in person, but if I need something, if I need help on something or try to figure something out, I know they're a message away, and they'll help me out. So it's pretty cool.
That's
how I met Pat.
Sorry, say it again.
I'm sorry. That's how I met Pat. So
that's awesome.
That's how this all came to be, because I reached out to someone on the internet.
Right.
Same thing with Rich. I see him on LinkedIn, and he was making posts. He was making content, and he worked for a sister company to me, and he was walking under a crane lift with no hard hat on. I was like, let's not do that, because if they shut you down, they're going to shut me down too, and I don't want shut down. And we became pretty good friends ever since then. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's probably been one of the coolest things since starting in this field, having worked in other maintenance fields. Not everybody wants to share their thoughts and their ideas and their knowledge. Some people want to hoard their knowledge. I have not run into that. I just have not run into that. Like, honestly, everybody that I work with, everybody, like, I can't even think of one person I wouldn't lump into that, is a phone call away, or, whatever you need, just let me know, and it's not just me, but any of the newer technicians that come in, we're pretty good about answering each other's phone calls and helping out where we can. And that's been really cool. Like, when I was a brand new tech, and I had like a screwdriver, it's like, yes, we supply our own tools. This is my tool, and, next thing I knew, all like the technicians were bringing me like stuff they didn't use anymore, but they still had it lying around, like, I don't know if Chuck up at Tulsa, he works with Stuart, but he works on the Garland clamshells as well. But I really needed an impact and drill, but I could not afford it. I had just started the job, and I couldn't afford to pay attention. And he was like, I got some new ones here. You can have these. And I was like, well, do you want, can I pay? And he was like, no, just take them. And I'm just like, bro, okay, thank you. But they're like that with all of the new technicians, and just making sure that we're set up for success, not thrown out in the deep end, sink or swim,
Yeah, I've noticed that about this industry. Everyone, you still have your guys, your old curmudgeon guys that, are grouchy or whatever. But
curmudgeon.
Most people in this industry they're trying to help people out, because they realize that it's shrinking so fast, and like, they don't want to work 1 million hours anymore. They want to, they got
right.
Family, and they're trying to help, everybody they can grow and get into this industry and succeed. And I think it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it is. It was refreshing. It was probably because I was nervous, coming in at 38 years old when I started there and hadn't been in maintenance for the better part of 10 years other than fixing stuff at my house or working on my own vehicles, and so I was nervous. Like, okay, are you going to get in there and not remember anything? Are you going to even be able to tell socket sizes? It's just really nervous. Like, I don't know what wrench to use, And so, but it was just so friendly, like
Mm-hmm.
new tech friendly, green tech friendly. I mean, obviously they're real big on training at Hager, real big on training.
That's
And
great.
so it's like get you into all the classes that you can go to, be willing and be ready to go to the classes so that you can learn everything that you can. Because what I've noticed is, we'll talk about, the techs that don't always make it, a couple months and it's just not their cup of tea. And that's okay, because everything's not for everyone. And you should recognize it and move on and find something that you love and you're good at.
Yep.
But the senior technicians, if you call them and you're making them diagnose it for you over the phone, that can be frustrating, versus if you already have all your data points and you've already checked through all the basics and you call them, they're a lot more willing to help you if they know that you're trying, like, I'm not doing this for you, you can do this, and allowing your confidence to step in.
That's how I approach when people call me for tech support. I try to I ask them questions. I may know what it is, but I'm not going to tell them the answer. I ask them questions, try to walk them towards that direction. And most of them never call me back because they figure it out on their own. And then they're more likely to remember it that way versus if I just give them the answer, they're going to call me for answers all the time. If I teach them or I walk them to it, they're going to remember that and they're less likely to call me back. Now, a lot of times people think I'm grouchy for that, but I just, I want you to have some information, before you call me.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other part of it is I have a lot of gut instinct, So when I was training with Taylor, so it was in my first couple of months, we had gone to this bakery and I knew nothing about commercial kitchen, anything. I was so brand new, probably my third, fourth week, and I could slightly identify a thermocouple. Here we go. And so we're in this bakery for this mixer, and we hadn't even cracked into it yet. And I could hear that there was a nick in the belt. I could hear that there was, and he was like, how do you know that? And I said, listen, I might not know anything about kitchen equipment, but I know belts. And there is definitely something wrong with that belt.
Oh yeah, you should.
Well, like, I can tell you when there's something wrong with the belt, but just getting to a place where you're comfortable and you can ask questions, give them the space to try to do it themselves. So I remember he would step back and say, okay, it's the Lisa Moore show. And he would watch me do it, watch me interact with the customer, kind of be a safety net behind me. So if I said something stupid, he could bail me out, which I don't think I did, but I might have.
So, we all might have.
I still say I don't feel bad.
Right. There's a strong possibility I said some things I shouldn't have said here and there, but yeah.
So Lisa, you said there was two things I wanted to say that from what you said earlier. One, you said you were 38 when you started. You said you were a millennial earlier, but I want you to know that you're an elder millennial. So you need to separate yourself from the regular
I'm a
millennials of this generation, please.
Yeah.
He's used that term on me this week as well. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, Pat's the same age. I was going to ask you how old you were when you said millennial. I'm like, okay. You're not acting like one.
Technically.
You look like one, but you're not acting like one.
Right. So if I say that I'm Gen X, I'll get jumped out back. But if I say I'm a millennial, somebody will think I didn't pay my taxes. So, I've got to try to find the...
I defend other Gen X. I'll come back you up. I got your back. But you're not a Gen X.
So what else?
The other thing was in regards to people who don't want to share their knowledge. So, I've dealt only with a few people. You've been blessed not to have such a good supportive culture in your company and people around you. But, if you do come around anyone who doesn't want to share, those are toxic people and they're not going to make it. They're very grumpy folk. And I know a few of them. And they got this mentality, if I teach somebody something, I'm going to lose my job. But at the end of the day, if you're going to lose your job, it's not going to be because you don't want to share. It's going to be because of something else. So definitely you want to continue to be around people who are supportive and positive and not toxic. And that type of behavior and that attitude I consider toxic.
Yeah, I agree completely. For sure. Because you're not perpetuating a healthy dynamic.
Yeah.
You're basically saying, like you said, if I give away my knowledge, then then I won't have my security. But the thing is, if you're not moving forward, if you're not continuing to learn, or you're not teaching, then you're not standing still. Nobody stands still ever.
Yeah, that means they have
You're
no intention of growing or anything. They
right.
just
You're
want to
just
be comfortable in their spot, And at the end of the day, if you're comfortable in that spot, then somebody does every role needs to be filled. So they should be supporting you. If they don't want to if they want to stay in that spot and comfortable, and that's okay.
Sure.
You might not, and they need to be supportive of you, because if they're not supporting you, they're not supporting the company. So
exactly. And I think that's why they are so big on that culture, because the reality is, people age, and people
So, Kitchen Cowboy.
She's reading it.
Yeah, I have to wonder about that. So I get to them when I get to them. So you can finish your statement, and I'll bring it up if you want. I probably threw her off track now. She forgot. So real quick, Kitchen Cowboy. He said that attitude would be hard to have at Hagar. All the senior techs and upper management do not support that. So that's really cool that they don't tolerate that kind of attitude or outlook.
No.
Who's Kitchen Cowboy?
Yeah, I'm like, who's that?
Stuart Ryman.
Oh yeah. And he's an example of somebody that imparts his knowledge and trains and teaches, and because honestly, at the end of the day, if we refuse to teach new technicians coming in how to do things properly, we're making life harder on ourselves too. Because
100%.
if we fail to train somebody properly, then we're not going to trust them on the on-call roster. So that means you're down one person on the on-call. Nobody wants that. And so, you want everybody trained so they can do their job. And because, it's disheartening to follow somebody and open it up, or, start to look at it and just be like, so it's like you want to impart your wisdom, you want to impart your knowledge, you want to learn as much as you can. That way we're setting each other up for success. Because, I was out of work for over a week when my dad went into the hospital, and so those were estimates that I wrote. That was work that I did. Those are orders that I made under the assumption that I would be returning to complete the call, but I was unable to complete the call. So I needed to do good work, quality work, write thorough notes so that another technician could go behind me and complete that without having to be like, what are you doing? What
Oh my
even
God,
happened
we talk
here?
about this all the time. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
You can thank Taylor for that one, because he drilled properly writing notes into my head as a trainee. And he has a very specific way he wants it laid out, but that's why he's successful himself. So,
Excellent. Yeah. I hate, we're big. We talk about notes. What was my phrase that I coined it as? Technical storytelling.
Yes.
Good notes. I write my notes like I'm not the one to come back. So I'm always very conscious of what someone's going to think about my notes, and if I'm articulate enough, and if I'm getting to, explaining the story, what I found, what I did about it, how is it working now, and then, you're good to go, sign off. So when people have these ambiguous, vague notes, and then they don't end up coming back, and I swear sometimes the people who have the worst notes have no intention of coming back, and they just don't care. But whatever. I digress. But yeah, notes are a big thing, and a lot of respect to you if you're considerate enough and showing the next person, if there's a next person, the professional courtesy of doing good articulate notes. And that, we talked about those notes are not just for yourself, for, to cover your behind, but for the next person, for the customer, and for the manufacturer. If there's warranty involved, they're going to want clear and articulate notes and whatnot. So, if you're learning it this way, you're learning it right. So
for sure. Yeah. Because and the bottom line is the customer, because if we want them to keep calling, if we want them to keep using, our service company, we don't want to have to go out and re-diagnose, because we have no idea what the previous tech has already done. They're vague and you don't understand. So it's like when everything's lined out really specifically, okay, I know that I don't have to redo this test because so-and-so did it. And here's all of their data points. Here's their proof. There's a picture of their meter showing, showing the voltage. So I know that they did it, So yeah, we're big on pictures. We're big on notes, and it's for everybody's sake. It's so that, when something goes south, because things go south, it's something that happens and it goes across, Taylor or Bill's desk or whatever, they might call me for a detail here and there, but for the most part, they should have a step by step, a play by play. First, I took off the left hand panel, and then I did this, and then I did that, and just really breaking it down to exactly what I did so that there's not any question. And there are days where, maybe not as specific as it could have been, but there's still a line.
I'm here, y'all. I'm here. No, I was kidding.
I'm here. It's fixed. Don't, it was broke when I got here. It's not anymore. Call it a day. No, I don't think I could get away with that. I don't like.
No, it's a standard.
I have days where I want to write crappy notes, and then I look at it, I'm like, I can't do this. I'll delete it and redo it. I'm like,
I know.
So
it's like that email you want to send off to someone. You're like, let me read it. I'm like, no, I better not send that.
Right. You delete it. Like, yeah, exactly.
I said what I had to say up here.
Right. I was in Lawton, which is like an hour and a half away, and I was doing I think I was doing all 3 platens needed new conduits, so rewire. It was a world girl, so just total rewire on all 3, and was in the middle of that and got a call from another location around the corner that I had just done some work on, and it had tripped the breaker and taken the whole grill out like during dinner, so it was just like mass chaos. Well, the on-call tech would have had to have gotten up. I was wrapping up, so it was like 9 p.m., right? And I was like, it'd be my zone call anyway. It's my callback, it's 5 minutes for me. I mean, unless you just want to drive an hour and a half, get out, get off the couch, put your boots on, and drive an hour and a half to call me and be like, what'd you do? So I went over there, and it ended up being this whole mess, and electrician tried to kill me, and we had words, and I invited him no, I'm just kidding. I didn't invite him outside, but I thought about it real hard.
Pray for him.
Sir, I cordially invite you to the parking lot to discuss how you just shocked my hand. I would really like to discuss on what you're allowed to touch and what you're not, and that grill is one that you're not. But so by the time it was all said and done, it was like midnight, and I'm exhausted. It had been a very long day. My in-laws happen to live in Lawton, so I called my mother-in-law and I'm like, is your guest bed available? I don't even care if the sheets are clean. I'm just gonna pass out and then go, roll back to the shop tomorrow morning anyway. So I get to her house, and I was like, I'm not doing notes. It's late and I'm tired, and I'm not going to do it. I can do them in the morning. Nobody's going to read my notes at midnight anyway. And I tossed and I turned for 20 minutes, and I grabbed my tablet at like 1 a.m. and wrote my notes begrudgingly because I just couldn't not do it.
And then slept like a baby, right?
Because I was just like, I know I'm wrong. I'm wrong, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And I was pretty fresh in my truck. So it was like, don't get complacent, do the right thing, and then pour extra coffee in the morning. So
that's funny. So you've done quite a few manufacturer trainings. What's some of the manufacturer trainings you've done, and what's been your favorite so far?
Okay. So I've had 2 Fry Master classes. My very first one was Jackson dish machine.
I like those.
Yeah, I don't mind them. I like
them.
I like dish machines in general.
I'm the only tech in my branch that likes working on dish machines. Everyone else hates them, and I don't mind them. I'm like, whatever, it's something different. I'll do all dish machines.
Right. I mean, I don't like jump for joy, but I also don't hide.
Yeah.
So they're not
only
like
so many things on that equipment, that can go wrong.
Right. And I've had some of those Murphy's Law jumping up and punch you in the mouth type situations with dish machines, and it's just like, oh, okay. But so yeah, the Jackson, the 2 Fry Masters. I did the online garland, and I went and did the hands-on garland. Turbo Chef at the Mick. That's pretty good.
I'm jealous about that. I'm trying to get down there. I'm sweet talking Isaac right now.
Yeah.
Isaac's actually going to be a guest on in a couple of weeks. So
sweet. Yeah.
I want to go down there and check out the Mick so bad. I keep seeing him post all this stuff. I was like, dude, I got to come see it. I'll figure out a way to get down there one way or another. So.
Yeah. I've gotten to go twice. I went for Turbo Chef when he first came on as the training guy. And so he didn't teach the Turbo Chef class. It was Roy from Turbo Chef that taught the one that I was there for, but Isaac's teaching them now. But then I got to go in September. I went in September for Middleby Marshall to, so yeah, oh my gosh, that training room is you've seen his pictures, those orange lifts that come out of the floor.
Yeah.
You get spoiled to it, because I mean, you're trying to work on a turbo chef in a Subway, and I mean, you're like trying to fit between the proofer oven or the bread holder, and just fighting to get to it. But in that training room, they raise up on those lifts, the orange lifts, and the tabletop spins 360. So, and then he's got cameras that he can zoom in. So like when everybody's at the tables, he can zoom in from different angles so that you can all see what he's doing on whatever unit he's, training on. It's really cool. It's really neat. So, but as far as my favorite, Garland is tied with Turbo Chef, and why would be just because I really like the clamshell grills. I find them fascinating. And I enjoyed the class with Bob Gray. Like, I learned a lot from him, in the interactions.
You like speed ovens?
Huh?
You like speed ovens?
I liked the training on them. No, I don't mind working on them. I actually like microwave circuits a lot. Microwaves are my second favorite thing to work on. So
I want nothing to do with them. Like,
those
I've worked on
Garland
Amanas for a long time, and they're pretty simple. I mean,
Yeah.
on Amana, you're changing out the latch on the door, the switch,
Right. Yeah.
some fuses, the ceramic plate, like
high
always.
voltage board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Board. Yeah.
But the Turbo Chef, the Mary Chef, and those speed ovens, man, I
like
really
them.
want someone who knows what they're doing to work on them. I can't. A bug. There's just too much going on with them. I just, so many things I've worked on. It's just like, you need to send someone who works on this all the time. So bless you for that.
Well, that's what I like about the Turbo Chef training, though. Like, the thing that I liked about it was we literally sat down in class and we got to put our hands on a bunch of different, units or whatever, the different models. But Roy went through, and I think Isaac does it in his training as well, went through error by error. Mm-hmm. And for each error, he tells you the only components that it could be and how to find it. Like, it was amazing. And so, like, I sit here and I've got this, and it's falling apart now. And so I got some digital stuff from Isaac to replace my handwritten ones that are disintegrating in my truck. But I mean, all I have to do is I show up, like a double batch at Panera, which are my least favorite of the Turbo Chefs. But I just go find the error that it's having. Roy told me exactly what to check. Like, there's not a lot of guesswork. I can't stand guesswork. I want to be able to defend my diagnosis. If I can't defend my diagnosis, I don't feel like I should be working on it by myself yet, kind of thing. Respect. And so he took all of the guesswork out for me. And so I know that if it's giving me this error, it can only be this. And so if it can only be that, if then, and that keeps it really simple. And so I really appreciated that training for that. And Isaac actually did something similar to that on the Middleby Marshall. Now that I think about it, he went through each error, because we went over the CTXs, the WOWs, what's that new one? The X70.
Not sure.
Do you have digital go? Those are what I call go no go trees. Yes, no, yes, no. If it does this, put that. You have all that digitized, you said?
No. He just sent me some like slides.
Oh, okay.
But no,
I will say, here's my email. Send those to me.
Right.
I can slide those to some technicians I see struggling on some of this stuff that I need fixed right away. I'm like, hey, here you go, guy.
Right.
Girl. There you go.
No. The training is amazing. The Turbo Chef training, I think it's probably my favorite based on that alone. But as far as really getting to dig in, and because I mean, in the Garland class with Bob Gray, he had us split into two groups with the compression grills, and we got to break it, and then the other crew had to come in and fix it. Yeah,
that can be dangerous.
Well, we did it in the Turbo Chef class too. Roy had us do the same thing, but we were stumping him. So the whole class got together and brutalized a double batch. and he had to come in and he had to diagnose it for us and explain to us how he arrived at each step. And I'm trying to remember, I don't know, you probably don't know Robert, but he what did he take out? He took something out of a gear motor or the blower motor. I don't remember. He took something out that you can't see and that you wouldn't like really know to look for. And it took Roy a minute to find it, but he did eventually find it. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, he broke it real good. We broke it real good. But
we had Turbo Chef training a couple weeks ago. It was pretty good training. They came in. Actually, it's been over a month ago, and I still got their stuff sitting in my warehouse. I'm about to hook it back up and start using it, but it was some pretty good training. I was really impressed. I think it was the same time that they were doing a training at the MIC on Turbo Chef, so it was really good training. They do a really good job, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was thorough. It was really thorough.
What are some of the challenges you come across in this industry? I mean, I don't think you can you probably handle them better than most people. It seems like you've done a lot of different things in your life, so you know how to overcome, things. So what would be a challenge or something that you've had to overcome?
Do you mean like physical challenges
or physical or whatever? I mean, just whatever you see as a challenge for yourself. It can be a physical, it can be, struggling to learn something or anything like
that. Sure. Plumbing, not the concept of plumbing, but I'm not a large person. I don't have leverage. The biceps might appear massive and well toned, but I've got the upper body strength of a kitten. It's not good. So I have a 4.5 foot cheater bar black pipe. I found it in the shop because the threads were all dented in. I was like, ain't nobody using this, and I went and threw it in my truck. So I call it the equalizer.
I have a 2-inch copper that's just mangled that I use for a cheater bar if I have to. And if I got to use that, it's a bad day. Generally, I break something. So
right. Well, I had gotten my butt handed to me twice on Frymaster High Limits. And I was done. And so, again, my coworkers are phenomenal. And I mean, I'm not the only tech that has had to call because they needed, some help lifting or some, some help lifting or breaking something loose. I'm not the only tech that's ever had to, need help for that. But so I have to give a shout out to Phil. He's one of our senior technicians, and I'm like drenched in sweat. I've reached a level of rage that is really only found in Hollywood. Like, I'm just so angry. If I can't get this high limit out, I'm just wheeling the entire fryer bank out to the street. Like, I'm done. And so just put me on the news. I'm finished. And so I've got like the breaker bar out. I went so far, and I've done this before when I was doing a burner job on a Frymaster, where I had to put my 18-inch pipe wrench on my breaker bar just for extra leverage.
Mm-hmm.
I have a picture of that. It's special. But so I mean, I was desperate. I was like, I have got to get this down. Well, I call into dispatch and I'm like, all right, fine, I give. Can you, because at this point I'm just wasting the customer's time. I was like, can you send the nearest set of biceps to help me get this stupid thing off, And so here comes my coworker, Phil, and he's awesome. And he comes in and he's like, oh, okay, yeah. I was like, I can get this. And I said, if you don't struggle, I'm probably gonna hit you. Please know it's not personal, but it's coming. And he was like,
I love that.
He was like, don't do that. I was like, you better break a sweat. Like, I'm gonna need some sort of something, or I'm gonna have an all out meltdown. So he gets over there and he's like, oh no, and he's like, oh my God. Like, so he really starts giving it the juice. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, all right.
I got a witness.
Vindication. So he fought with it, and he ended up having to go out to his truck and get his copper pipe and bring it in to get it out. And so I was like, okay, because that is honestly, I don't want to call it a fear, but it's one of my biggest, like, it would be really embarrassing for me if I couldn't do something at all, but a coworker could do it very, very easily. Now I'm not saying, because what happened is just teamwork, and that was him helping me out and all that. But like, I don't want to be a drain, and that has been in my thing, because I'll tell this story from when I was in the Army. I remember it was in Korea. We had a female platoon leader. She was a lieutenant, and we would go on these ruck marches, and and you got the full battle rattle. You got your your M4, and you're marching for what feels like an eternity, and it does start to weigh on your body physically and emotionally, and you're tired and you're worn out. Well, I remember she would get really tired and she would start to fall back, and some of the guys would come put their hand on her back and kind of push her and help her. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, that's nice, it's gentlemanly, it's chivalrous, but we're training for combat, and we all have to be able to carry our own weight. And so if we're in a combat situation and I can't carry my own weight, I'm not helping my platoon. I'm hindering. Not helping my squad. Yeah. Right. I've officially become a drain. I'm draining resources. I'm draining energy. So if I can't do the job, I don't need to have the job. And I don't think there's shame in trying something and realizing that it's not for you. But if you're going to do something, you have to do it with everything that you have, so that you're not draining the resources and draining the people around you. And so that's kind of been like really important to me. And so it's like, if I'm calling for help, it's because I have done everything. But as I have progressed, I have found ways to not, like, again, I went and picked up that black pipe out of the shop, and I was like, this is mine now, and threw it in my truck. And like, nobody's going to use this. It's like 2-inch inner diameter, and the threads are like wonky and bent in. I'm like, they don't need it. And so, I got that. My father-in-law runs a Habitat for Humanity like outlet store, and he ran across a vise, and he bought it for me for my birthday. And so I mounted that in the back of my truck. So now I can put my gas valves in a vise, because that's what I mean by plumbing, not understanding how plumbing works, but just trying to break a fitting loose can be a challenge if I don't have the proper equipment. But that's why I say I can do anything with a step stool and enough leverage.
I've broken 2 teeth trying to get gas valves apart, like just clenching my teeth as hard as I could, and I broke 2 teeth. So I don't know what it is.
Tensing up, and
just putting everything into it. I felt them pop, and I was like, oh, both times I knew what I did. I was mortified.
It takes everything out of you. Like,
I do not know how they get those gas valves so tight. I don't understand
why.
And it's not FryMaster. It's the Pitco ones. The ones I have problems with they are just absurd.
Yeah, like the millivolt.
Yeah,
the millivolt.
Yeah. I think it's because they assemble as an assembly, and then they just crank the living crap out of them, and just every single time.
So, Lisa, what kind of vehicle do you have for work?
I have a Nissan NB200.
I hate those. They're long and weird turning. But anyways, originally was asking us because you mentioned a vise in the back of the van, and I had a Chevy van, and those came with like this extension plate that slides out, and it's flat. And I would go and get the $29.99 little vise from Home Depot, drill the holes in there, and that sucker slides out. That's a lifesaver having that. And now they have this new joint. What's it called? You don't even have to have that pipe vise, the red one.
Yep.
You can get them in different sizes. They're light. They can go anywhere in your truck, and they have the base that sticks out far enough for you to have leverage. You don't have to mount it to anything. You can work with it anywhere. It's pipe vise makes it. It's
called the
right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's the Bigfoot. It's got a big platform, big base.
Yeah.
So did you say the NB200? Is that the little one?
What are they, 400s? The long ones?
Yeah, it's the little one. Our cold side guys have the big ones.
She's got the
she's got the little, like what do you call the Ford ones? We call those the little Vespas or whatever.
The Transits.
The little Transits, they're like those, right?
Yeah. So
Luke had, I think, one of those those Nissan ones. We'd be zooming around town. Now, those are like little cars, and a lot of the guys who a lot of the guys who before we were holding people to having ladders on their vehicles and stuff like that, they were like, hey, I live in an HOA. And they're like, all right, well, guess we'll give you the Transit so they can get out of climbing up on any roof or anything, unless there's a roof hatch or something.
Lucky dog.
That's like the one thing that makes me scared to ever cross over to cold side. The thought of having to climb up on a roof makes my stomach hurt.
Well, how tall did you say you were?
5'3".
All right. Oh, geez. Yeah. So let me just, so in regards to your height, you'll have to use your leverage and balance if you get a ladder, and you'll have to get like a blue light ladder, extension ladder, or because those fold out ones, like the aluminum ones that are
Yeah, it's just gonna
like the
leave.
Gorilla, they're heavy. They're
Mhm.
wicked. They're wicked awkward and heavy.
Yeah. And it's windy here.
Yeah. I mean, it's very beneficial for you to pick up cold side HVAC refrigeration, because once you get you master and you get pretty proficient at what you're doing on hot side, it's all the same concept outside of the thermodynamics and the refrigerant stuff like that. It'll behoove you to get your EPA license. It's good money. It's just another reason to give you another raise and just makes you that much more valuable. But yeah, 5'3" on a ladder and a good gust of wind, you're a kite.
With a fear of heights. So just sprinkle that on there. Like, I got a step ladder for Mother's Day. My husband was like, "What do you want for Mother's Day?" And I said, I need a step ladder for my service truck. Like, that's what I needed. So he and the kids went and got me a Cobalt step ladder. I was
nice.
Like, yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. But no, so a story from when I was brand new. First in my truck, I roll up to this drive-in restaurant, and I go inside. The issue was their hood vent, and I did the little test with the thin paper, and we have nothing. And I could hear it again. I could hear there was something wrong.
The bell.
And the belt. I'm like, oh, something is amiss. And then I was like, I'm gonna have to get on the roof. You can do this. You're an adult. You're a grown up. You can do this. You can do this. And so I go outside, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking at the ladder, and I'm like,
it was a fixed ladder to the building?
It was fixed, yeah, to the building.
Girl, get up there.
So, but here's the thing. So I climb up, right? And I'm like, I can do this. I'm all right. Well, I get eyeball level with the roof, right? And I realize the ladder's flexing. And I
like
looked
wobbling?
to my left and I looked to my right, and I was like, I'm not doing this right now. I'm already up here. So I hop up on the roof and I go look. The belt's busted, which I already knew. But originally I was like, I could probably just run down and, find him a... No. And so I looked in there. I'm like, yeah, belt's busted. Okay, cool. So I go to come down, and I put my foot and kind of like push at it a little bit, and I can see. And what they had done was they had taken like PVC and like bolts through the PVC and like that roof putty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they had affixed the ladder to the building. And this sucker was like wiggling. And so I'm not even ashamed of it. I'm just going to say, I called my husband and I was like, you might have to have my mail forward. I might just live here now. Tell the kids I'll miss them, see mommy on Google Maps or something when the car goes by. But like, I don't think I can ever come down from here. I think this is it. And he said, well, if you call the fire department, you'll never live it down. And I'm like, ever. No, I'll have to quit. I'll have to move. I'll have to change my name, And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I can do this. But I'm like, this thing is wiggling and I don't think it's normal. So I took like a quick video of it wiggling because I was freaking out. And I sent it to Taylor. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, quit being a baby. Just quit, And so I get up and I'm like, you don't weigh that much. You're not going to pull it off the side of the building, I hope. And so I start climbing down and I'm shaking like a leaf. And I get to the ground and I'm like, okay, thank you, Jesus. Okay, thank you. And then my phone rings and he was like, it was Taylor. He said, please tell me that you're not on that roof anymore. And I was like, no. And he goes, do not go back up there. He was like, that ladder is not safe. And I'm like, I'm so glad you called once I was on the ground. Holy cow. Because if you had called me and said this while I was still on the roof, you really would have had to have like a helicopter come get.
You would have been all right calling the fire department, and hopefully no one catches on the news.
I've been there, man. When I first started doing this, I was scared of heights. I've always been scared of heights. I just it doesn't bother me now, but like I had a 24-foot extension ladder extended all the way up, and it barely just reached the edge of the parapet wall, and it was a 4-foot drop here. And like I jumped over, and I didn't bother to look and see if there was anything I could stand on to get back over. And I was like, how am I getting my big butt up on this 4-foot parapet wall to get to my ladder? I was like, I'm calling the fire department. It was on the roof of an AT&T wireless building in Greenwood, Indiana. I remember this day, dude. I was like, I'm going to call the fire department. I'm going to be stuck up here. It's going to be so embarrassing.
If they can get the cat out of the tree, they can get us off a roof, dang it.
I ended up getting down, but I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. So,
Yeah, we put it in the notes. Returning tech will need to bring own ladder.
Yep. Now I look, if there's a parapet wall, I always look. I'm like, is there something to step on? Is there some blocks up here? Is there a bucket or something I can stand on? Okay,
Right.
I'm good.
How tall are you, Pat?
6 foot.
A 4-foot parapet wall, 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Oh, you got shimmy, baby. You got to shimmy.
Oh yeah, and I'm not a little guy. There's not much shimmying going on.
Oh, Shaq says.
Yeah. That's fun. So if someone would come to you and ask you what you do for a living, what would you tell them? If they're interested in doing it, what advice would you give them?
Because I've had a lot, like in-house maintenance workers, I want to do what you do, and I usually just say, don't overthink it and don't think yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because with a company that is so invested in its technicians and really focused on training, if you have the aptitude for it, you can learn this, so I just say, I've said it to a couple people, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't tell yourself you're not smart enough. Don't tell yourself it's too hard. Just try it and fill out the application. You might not get the interview, but at least just fill out the application and see. The worst thing that could happen is no phone call, or you start the job and you go, actually this isn't for me, and you choose to go another way. But I wish more people that were mechanically minded knew about this industry, honestly.
Oh, that's great advice. I mean, I didn't think I'd do as well as I do in this industry, coming from an electrical background. I was an electrician. And I think I'm like my son. I've got that "you're not gonna beat me" mentality.
Yes.
I'm not gonna let it win. And I stick things out to the end, but I also will look up information. I will call somebody. I will do everything I can. But yeah, it's a great career. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
I just took on a new Goliath. And it's really not that much of a Goliath. It's funny, the things that intimidate us, because it seems like for every technician, it's a different thing, I'm not intimidated by the Garland grills, but you put me in front of a BIC and I'm just like, oh, the blending cup frappe machines. And I'm like, well, the tech that usually works on them has been out. And so they were stacking up, and so several of us went out on them, and I even teased Taylor. I was like, I thought we were friends. Like, why would you do that? Just messing with him. Like, there's going to be retaliation for this, But the thing is, I texted him when I got there, and I was like, you know what? No, I am so tired of being intimidated by these things. I want you to give me as many of them as you can.
Mm-hmm.
That way, and he, he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, I don't want anything to have one on me. Like, I don't like being, overruled, by anything. I don't want to be outsmarted by any equipment. I'll learn you from the inside out, and then I'll own you. So that's kind of the mentality for that. So he's been sure honoring what I asked him to do. And I was like, do I regret that statement? No, I don't. No, I do not regret that statement. I do not.
So do you keep those BIC motors, at least 2 in your truck, and the shafts?
So we run with service boxes per equipment. So I don't know
like
how
go
many
boxes per manufacturer or per customer. Like we had Panera boxes when I was at Panera. We had McDonald's boxes, Burger King boxes.
So it's per manufacturer, sort of. So like, for instance, we've got like 2 World Grill 9501 go boxes, and then we've got like a Garland range and griddle box, and then we've got the 3PX box, and then we've got the Chick-fil-A specific box. So like, some manufacturers, there are different boxes for different models, just because of how the frequency, that we work on them. But for the most part, we just have like a go box per manufacturer that gets sent out. And then if you're local, the shop's right there, and we have the warehouse with our parts department.
Yeah,
so
those big beverage in a cup frappes, when the person who taught me how to work on those, I didn't get a formal class at first. So when you take the cup holders off, you You take the front cover off, you get to the motor. So the guy who showed me how to do this was like, hey, you got to unscrew those screws inside there, pull them out. And then when you want to put the screws back in, you take a piece of paper, you stick the nut in there and you put it down. It was like 6 months. And then I was like, wait a minute, this plate comes off the front of the dang gum motor. You know, I'm in there trying to, and it ended up being between the BICs were my favorite thing to work on. I kept the motors in the car. I kept the extra shafts. If the warranty wouldn't, they always wanted the shaft. Right. They always wanted the shaft back, but not the motor. But BICs, I remember being taught wrong, and by mistake, I messed with it, and the thing unhooked, and I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, why didn't anyone show me how to do this? But because once the dude left, I was that guy. So they're like, oh, send Jason on it. So I'm knocking these out. But I'm like, man, okay, this is the part. And then I was training other people. I'm like, this is the part where you got to take the 3 nuts, and you got to grab a napkin, stuff it in the socket, drop it in there, and then you catch it. And that just goes to show if you're not trained, I'll say I wasn't trained right at the beginning, but I didn't want to be defeated by this piece of equipment. So I just got really efficient at doing it the way I could figure out how to do it. You find a way. Yeah, you find a way. And then down the road, this thing was loose, I guess, from the last person. It came off, and I was just staring at it like I blacked out, like, that guy doesn't work here anymore, but I'm going to find his number, and I'm going to give him a call and be like,
like Liam Neeson, I will find you.
Yes, I will find you.
He knocked on his door in a thunderstorm.
I got my first introduction to, they used, an object, because you're not supposed to use an object, period, to clean out, like if you suspect a clog, in the drain. Yeah. And they had not only used something, but they had used something multiple times and quite vigorously, if I say so. They had put like some major slashes in this drain hose, and so all the product that was draining down was going inside of the unit. And that was what I sent the picture to Taylor and told him that there would be retaliation for this.
Can I tell you a trick about clearing out those Bics if you're not aware of it? So don't stop me. Someone will want this piece of information. What I do is I open up the trays. I remove the 2 trays from the BIC. I remove the center tray. I grab my wet vac and I go around the back. I pull the hose out of the back that goes in the drain. I stick that into the wet vac. So what I do is I run the wet vac. I have all 3 of those open. I take 2 pieces of paper, clog it up. I will stuff it in each of the drains of those 2 where the cups go. That will force the center to get sucked out. Then I'll take a piece of paper. I'll stick it in the middle. That causes the right one to suck out, vice versa. So if you're sucking through all 3 of those and you clog 2 out of the 3, if it's a powerful enough wet vac, it'll just clear that line, and you can just clear the other one. That's a quick way for me to clear the center and the 2 drinks. You just have to pull the bottom trays out and the center tray out, and just stop 2 out of the 3 holes from draining, and just let the wet vac clear 1 hole and just do the other 2. Gotcha. So that's a little trick I learned.
I have a wet vac, and
the store normally does if you don't.
Well, it was just me and a hose and effort.
Fair enough. I got other techs that keep a small, like a $30 compressor from Home Depot. Yeah. They'll use nitrogen, they'll use air, and they'll try to close to and blow it out. And there's all these different things people try to get it done. That was the easiest way for me. Like wet vac, and it's like right. And then if you get the sink, like if you ever worked on if you're working in the McDonald's and you got an out of warranty Taylor frappe machine, if you've ever worked on those and they've been out of commission for a hot minute, and I know Wellbuilt had a single pitcher one back in the day before they did the BIC and shut Taylor's business part of that down, but that has a little thing on the bottom. If you remove those, and I remember it was 1/4-inch screws, there is a science fair project going on underneath there, and I'll have to share some photos sometimes. And it's just anyways, I won't do that. Excuse me, I digress. But there's always, like you said, there's always a way to figure out how to do things, right. And until you can get the proper way how to do it or best practices. And what you said about a thing, we just call that an apparatus. Whatever you're using to get the job done, we just call it an apparatus.
Yeah, we call it a hoodis.
Hoodis?
Yeah. You have a prying hoodis, you've got an unclogging hoodis, you've got a screw turning hoodis, whatever you need.
Like
That's a new one.
Yeah.
All right. We've been going forever. This is like one of our longest episodes, and I'm sure we keep going. So we'll have to have you back for a round 2. But I'm going to cut us off right now because it's go. We're going to keep going and going and going. But I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
I don't know how active you are on social media. We always ask people if they want to share their social media, they can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But if anyone wants to reach out to you on social media, if they want to talk about, anything you've seen in the career, anything like that, they can reach out to you if you want to share it. If not, don't worry about it. But we really appreciate you coming on, telling your story. And we will definitely have to have you back for episode 2 to catch up and to go over some more stuff because we didn't even scratch the surface here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on for sure. It was fun.
But you've got a pretty cool story, and it seems like it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. So I'm proud to have you on, and I'm excited to meet you. And it's just funny that Taylor is the one that got you on and got you going. So that's pretty cool. You said that name, and I was like, that has to be who it is. That has to be who it is. I don't think too many guys named Taylor that work at Hagar. So
no, yeah, that's awesome.
Where are you the most active online? If you don't mind sharing, is it LinkedIn or?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Not as much Instagram.
On Facebook, are you like in what do you follow? What groups are you following? In like Rich Malachy or?
I don't know if I'm in his. I am in the commercial kitchen technician. Or there's a couple of service.
There's a couple of those.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of those, and then I'm also in the Turbo Chef, Mary Chef specific group. I think that might be it. I'm just in like 3.
Okay. There's one called FED, which is Food Equipment Digital Disruptors. Pat and I is in there, and there's a lot of people in the industry just sharing what they do. It's all around what we're doing here. So you might want to look into that. The Fed Nation, we call it. Okay. But yeah, Food Equipment Digital Disruptors for those of us who like to do what we do, but also like to share what we do online and promote the industry and share with others and whatnot. So
for sure. Awesome. I'll check it out.
Hey, I'll go ahead and add you or send you an invite to it. You can check it out if you want. It's a pretty good group. It's just trying to highlight, our industry like we've been doing. Just a lot of fun. So, well, I appreciate you appreciate you coming on and spending an hour and a half with us tonight. It's been a blast, and I look forward to talking to you more. And we will definitely have you on in the future. So, anything you want to say on closing remarks there, Jason?
Oh no, appreciate your time, Lisa. And it's a new year. We'd like to see everyone, the different demographics of people. This industry is for everyone, and I love seeing a strong female on here. Thank you for your service. And like I said earlier, my wife also served in the military, and this is an industry that we need to share because it's this country's infrastructure suffering, and it's not just this blue collar industry of food equipment. It's electrical, it's plumbing, it's woodwork, it's everything. We need to promote the trades and we need to get that out of there because if we're not doing it, we're just going to import that work and we don't need that. We need to take care of ourselves and keep this country strong and keep it going and cooking and whatnot and enjoying ourselves. So again, thank you, Lisa, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
See ya. If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.